Hello, welcome to Brain Club, the podcast, a space for learning, unlearning, and reimagining new ways of being together in neuroinclusive community. I'm Dr. Mel Houser, Executive Director of All Brains Belong Vermont. Welcome to our brand new podcast. Brain Club is All Brains' full weekly community education program where we demonstrate our approach to neuroinclusive culture through community panels, guest speakers, and book chats. It's a place where we shift broader community awareness about the issues of concern and importance to neurodivergent people in our community and promote new ways of thinking and being in community together. It's a place where we transform culture by modeling what's possible with the idea that then you go out into the rest of your lives and carry it forward. You can already access all the recordings from our website at allbrainsbelong.org, but our community asked us to turn it into a podcast, so here we are. These conversations are not medical advice and they're not support groups. They're an invitation to think differently about health, connection, and how we build systems that include everyone. Each episode features community panelists sharing perspectives and lived experiences. We hope you'll listen with curiosity and reflect on what it brings up for your own life. In this conversation, we speak with pediatric occupational therapist Hannah Bloom, who's the founding chair of All Brains Belong's board of directors, and one of my favorite people in the world. About how safety is cued or not, we talk about the nervous system impacts of home environments, family dynamics, internalized expectations, and how unlearning those patterns is part of building safety. This episode looks at the subtle, everyday ways that neuronormativity and ableism shape how we show up with ourselves and each other.
We were talking yesterday about how a lot of people think that there's like a set of things to do, and that's going to make their family environments and their relationships feel better. Like that there would be like some strategies top down, but that doesn't really play out.
Right. Yeah, that there's some prescription of how to exist that creates this end goal.
Right.
Doesn't exist.
It does not exist. I think that I know as a parent, just as a human, like I am so rarely regulated. And when I am regulated or when I am distracted enough, like I'll give you an example. Okay, so typically when it's time to leave the house, I'm like, Luna, I want you to leave the house. Let's go leave the house. Luna's limbic system's like, yeah,
no,
it's not right. Like, no. And it's not volitional. It's automatic, involuntary. It is not safe when someone is inducing me to comply.
Right.
And this week, when it was time to leave, I was on the phone with my colleague and I opened the door and I was like, Luna, I'm going to be leaving for the thing. I thought you might want to get dressed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back to the phone call and my energy was like not directed at her.
Right.
And she was like, bring me my clothes. So I grabbed the clothes, I put them in and I said, and she's like watching a screen and I was like, you might want to put them on. And then I was like distracted again, back to the call. And then 10 minutes later, I go back in. Dressed. She's freaking dressed.
Yep.
This has never happened in the history of my life.
Yep. Yeah. So you removed any time constraint because it wasn't, I'm leaving. Are you coming? We're going. I'm leaving, which is like time constraint now. This is happening. And you removed pressure of your presence and energy by being in a different mental space, right?
Right. And the time thing was not actually removed. I talked about time. I knew about time kind of, although I don't really experience time. So like energetically, time was not part of my mental space. It
Right.
was more so the latter. It was more so like my energy was diffused by paying attention to something else. And that contributed to us. I think it contributed to a sense of safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and a sense of safety in a removal of not being able to meet an expectation.
Yes.
So the fear or the fight or the limbic response to an expectation being put, am I going to be able to meet this expectation? I don't know. So maybe I'm going to say no right away. I don't want to meet your expectations, so I'm going to say no right away.
Your expectations feel unsafe to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I shut them down because that's what my little limbic system is supposed to do. Unsafe. I actually did not have expectations. I didn't have enough cortex to have expectations.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So sometimes we remove expectation of transition by adding like a speaker story, and then the speaker travels with you. So like there's an audio, a podcast or an audiobook that we're listening to, and it just kind of gets turned on. Then I'm helping Isaac get dressed and I'm right there with him and we're listening. And then the speakers just move into the car and we're going to follow it because that's what we want, is the story.
That's amazing. And it's not like a gimmick. It's like the lens. It's almost like reframing the lens. Like if the primary goal is to do the thing, it will fail because it will feel unsafe.
Yeah.
The primary goal is a safe experience.
Is a safe experience. And the primary goal is an on-time arrival for my need. So I know my need, but limbically, I can maintain a calm in relationship. So I know my need of getting somewhere by a certain time. So I can rewind that by 2 hours because this is how my brain works. And I can know that, okay, it's going to take this amount of time to do these things. And what are the tools or what's the safety net that's going to allow this to happen so that I'm not late, which is when my limbic kicks in and I get stressed. But I give like a huge amount of time to be able to get to that point. And it's removing, for Isaac, it's removing a list of must-dos before a final external unsafe expectation. You getting to work is not, me getting to work on time is not a need of his. So I don't even put that on the schedule sometimes, right?
So you're also talking about framing this as an access need issue. So your access need is to arrive on time. It doesn't matter whether it's rational or irrational. It is your brain rule and it is serving you. And so you are keeping it. And so the way that you have negotiated conflicting access needs is to plan your day with this 2-hour lead up so that your energy. So this is about like planning your life around basically it's planning your life around being regulated.
Regulated. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that must mean that it's not just about blocking out 2 hours. Like you're essentially building your life around being regulated. That sounds like a good idea. How do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you do that? A lot of tools. I mean, a lot of access needs, a lot of accommodations that fit, that are forever changing because sometimes what works one week isn't what works today, but that's okay. You're roll with it and flexible. So that using a story, using a cognitive engagement for Isaac gives him safety that allows his nervous system to continue to do the mundane, brush my teeth, put my socks on, walk to the car, buckle my seatbelt. Like those are all tedious tasks to his nervous system. So a cognitive engagement that's enjoyable gives him more access to that hard stuff. It's the threshold piece. How many stressful pieces of my day can I do without it all adding up into full system stress?
Yes. You know, that is making me think about cognitive regulation, because just as you're saying that Isaac's cortex is engaged with the story and following along it, that reminds me of Luna today when we were leaving for school. Luna entered character. Luna was the ground critter, and everything we did was about the ground critter doing the thing. That made it more accessible because Luna was using her cortical strategies to make her feel more safe. And so by my actually interacting with ground critter, it actually like shifted my expectation because I'm like, we're in a mode where she's crawling on the floor and rolling around in the dirt. And it's 7:50 a.m. and it's 36 degrees and we're rolling around in the dirt. And like, I'm going to engage in that. I'm going to enter that space. And like, it made me shift out of expectation because part of me was like, all right, I'm with the ground critter. We may be late to school because I am in this different space now. And because I'm using, and we all have different self-regulation strategies. One of mine is the mantra of safety and connection is primary. And so there is arriving 10 minutes earlier to school is not actually going to be worth it to me. Even my cortex, when I like do risk benefit calculations, anything that can come from my being like, we got to do the thing, it's never worth it because of that cortical strategy of like regulation and safety, connection and safety is primary.
Your the brain will not have expansive access, won't be able to engage, to learn, to have partnership if it's all if it's all in sympathetic fight, flight, freeze, flop mode. And the way to keep that cortical is connection and safety. And so you use that cortical top-down method to achieve your state of regulation and be present in the environment and the emotional and neuroceptive energetic energy that's right there and available. And in that, you access a different level of connection and regulation and togetherness, right?
Yes. So we've had the experience of being around a small group of kids with hypersensitive neuroception threat detection systems. And this has gone really well. What do you think has made it go well? And by go well, I mean the kids feel safe and want to come back.
Yeah. What do I think's made it smooth or accessible?
Other than you being there, because like you are a magical human.
We are, not only have we had the privilege of being with kids with heightened neuroception, but we have a group of adults with them, caregivers, parents, loved ones who are very neuroceptive and aware of energy. And I think setting us all up as a group of big people in trust and connection, and going on 3 years of connection and collaboration, building that as a safe place. These little humans are walking into what is already very accepting and open and valued space. So I think the energy for sure in that space is huge. You help me regulate, I help you regulate. The other big people in the space equally help all of us regulate. Leah and I had the conversation when we first started working together. Leah is another one of the big people in this space, like for her to understand my nervous system. When I start to get really flighty and kind of hyper and like I have a lot of things to say and I may be like running all over the place, please, Leah, just give me this like, down here, Hannah. And she is so solid and she is so much that grounding force. Like even just working with her for the last 3 weeks, I've been able to be like, all right, I can get hyper and I can get flighty, and that's a part of who I am. And that's a part of, I will play tag and run in circles because that's great for my nervous system. And then when I sit down and I get a drink of water and I feel Leah's energy, I'm like, and I'm back here. And this is a good solid space for me to be observant and be a draw to the nervous systems that are still really high energy.
Yes. The other thing that you do and that Leah does, and that I work hard to cortically get myself to follow your lead on this, is that I don't have an expectation of what play looks like in that space. Right. And energetically, these sweet little limbic systems, they feel not just energy and angst, but they feel expectation. They know when someone is expecting them to do the thing, this like invisible external demand to fit in or like otherwise do the thing.
Yeah.
Because of who we all are, we actually like don't expect them to do the thing, and they don't expect each other to do the thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot of rewiring social construct in our own neurology, our own narrative of what the world is. It's definitely a new space of being the therapist, being the occupational therapist on the team. Like, I'm not showing up with my agenda and my whiteboard and all my systems of we're going to do a regulating sensory piece, and then we're going to do a social exchange piece, and then we're going to do a regulating sensory piece. Like, I had a whole formula 10 years ago that I was stuck, that was a brain rule. And to liberate that from my expectations gives this authentic engagement space for the little people that I'm working with that can come into connection and engagement and self-actualization in the path that fits their nervous system and their brain, not that fits our socialized expectation of when you graduate from therapy, you will have learned, right? So that's been it's just been unlearning brain rules, but it's also been noticing where the good stuff is, noticing where the joy is and where the really sweet connections are, and where those little places of like, just you feel it. You're like, oh, this is it. This is worth holding on to. I want more of this. And noticing those times that came up, they of course were always when the child or the student, when the kid, when my child felt the safest, right? And so they would come into that as looking for acceptance, connection, who I am, I'm showing up as me, totally different. And it was never in any prescription. It was never in anything that I would show up and be like, and at this point we will have a self-actualized, connection.
I wonder if many people, because of their lived experience of feeling unsafe by the social constructs in their own lives, that limbic response, even in remembering, because trauma stays in your body, right? So like you enter a space like a play group and your kid does a thing, and energetically, whether real or imagined, the energy of there's gonna be judgment on my kid, judgment on me, and like, even though nothing happened, the energy that goes out into, ooh, unsafe, then they feel that energy of like, ooh, unsafe, and then chaos. What do you do in that moment to be like, to return to a place of, I'm gonna let go of that?
How do you, so I like, for me, and this is the practice. And so, I mean, this is also the good question about what it means for the family too. So for me in the family, the way that I return to regulation, the way that I and bring my nervous system back into reading other people's attunement, reading other people's nervous system, instead of being overwhelmed by my own, whatever it is going on. The best way for me to do that is to get down on the ground. Again, this is me, and this is experiments of years of knowing how to attune. For me, it's squatting down close. It's putting both my hands on the ground for a second, the floor. So I squat and I'm low. There's something about the proprioceptive work. Like, I think because my glutes kick in so much, I'm like, oh, here's my body. And because I get into flexion, I'm like, oh, here I am. This is my contained little nervous system. Putting my hands on the ground feels strong. I feel like, yep, I am strong. I am a strong person. I can do this. So I'm building from the sensory system back into regulation. And I've practiced it enough over the years that I can do it fairly quickly in my nervous system. Those cues kick in safety for my neuroception. And it's subconscious. It is something our brains are always doing all the time, scanning the environment, scanning the interrelationships, scanning the internal relationship, the internal environment for safety. We are geared for it. So once we feel it, once we find it, it's what our system wants to go to. That homeostasis is where we want to be cellularly, right?
Yes.
Okay. So for my nervous system, it's that. It's getting low, it's getting grounded. It's softening my face, like actively saying, let your eyes soften. Don't create some expected emotion. So that, like, that shame, fear response might create this expected, like, oh, I'm okay, right? Like, everything's fine. Can you tell this isn't really a smile? Like, but it's what we do because it's what we've been socialized to do. So actively neutralizing, softening my face. And then, like, something about the environment for me usually helps. Find the horizon, look at a tree root, some sort of cue to me that's like, there's no saber-toothed tiger here. There's no gaping hole that's going to suck you into the hot molten lava of the middle of the earth. This is solid ground.
So you're describing that you begin with a bottom-up strategy. You get into your body and you ground yourself, whatever that means to you. You ground yourself, and then you have access to your cortex where you are cortically mediating your limbic response, because now you have access to your cortex because you did that initial bottom-up softening to take the edge off, to like bring your cortex back online, and then you go to that. I think a lot of people skip right to that, or they try to skip right to that, and they don't have access to their cortex, and you can't skip it. You have to do something to access your cortex. Yep. And there's an element of, like, when you're in the thick of it, even if you're like already screaming and like actively flipping your lid, you don't have access to the impulse control to stop. You may not even be able to like metacognitively like zoom out and watch yourself. You just don't have access to that. So it's really just like, it's happening, get to the ground, if that's how you ground, like something in your body.
Yep. Yeah. And it's experimental for a while. It's trial and error to figure out what your physical somatosensory system responds to. And then once that's a cue of safety for your physical sensory being, it grows, it gets stronger. And sometimes maybe it needs tweaking. Like, when my knees can't squat anymore, and hopefully not for another 20 years, I'll have to figure something else out.
The other thing is that if someone knows that their go-to self-reg plan is a top-down, trying to use their cortex.
Yep.
One thing that I've found helpful is to prepare ahead of time what I'm wanting my cortex to do.
Yep.
Because if I can like ideate and motor plan it ahead of time, I can maybe access it as like an automatic loop I can pull in, as opposed to trying to use it in the moment, because then it becomes not a stop, impulse control stop. It's like foot's on the gas already. Don't try to step on the brake of stop screaming at your kid. It's I'm going to go to my automatic loop. And so for me, that is, like I said before, the mantra of like the relationship is primary. Like whatever the thought, I can try, even if I don't have full access to my cortex, that I can try that. I mean, it doesn't work maybe, but like it might work a lot better than like, I'm going to talk myself out of how this is okay.
Right. Well, I mean, and this is also gets to some of the cores of like, there's the unnumberable amounts of different brains. You think, when we've talked about this, you think in specific word patterns, always. Your directions are in go left at and 2 stop lights, then so your brain does everything in that language space. And I do not. I do pictures, and I know which rock is at the driveway that I want to drive into, not where it is on the street in words ways. So I think that's also just a self-awareness piece of what works for your brain, and language works for yours.
I feel so seen right now.
The language doesn't work great in my brain. So to start to do like an internal talk in the midst of feeling really dysregulated is just like, oh, that would be too much work.
Yeah. So it begins with self-awareness of like what actually calms you.
Right.
And maybe even developing an awareness of like your go-to patterns of how you negotiate life, even when you're like generally regulated enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Which then, I mean, gives you that base of being able to have the space for your family to feel safe and heard and seen. Because the goal is acceptance and connection for all of us. And that requires me also having that grace and acceptance of like, I understand myself sometimes.
Sometimes the hardest place to feel regulated is the one that's supposed to feel like home. But when we start naming the patterns and offering ourselves and others more compassionate cues of safety, we create space for something different. Thank you so much to Hannah for sharing what this unlearning process can look like and how it opens the door to deeper connection. And that unlearning we do together. If you want to keep exploring with us, you can join our live Brain Club events most Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can also dig into our free digital resource library with all the recordings from the past 4 years at allbrainsbelong.org. You're not alone, and we're glad you're here. See you next time.